Have you ever wanted to paint animal eyes that have this beautiful ethereal glow in person? In this video, I'm going to walk you through how I painted this dramatic white tiger eye using oil paint and using a little bit of a secret technique that I have been loving lately. It's one of my all-time favorite techniques that is gonna just do wonders for adding instant depth and just the most beautiful sort of light that is just absolutely captivating in person. Before we get started, I just wanted to share something super cool with you. I just launched my latest painting project, and here's the best part. It is completely free. You can learn how to paint this shiny blue cat eye with oil paint for free. Go sign up in the link in the description of this video. This full-length tutorial is the perfect snapshot of what you can find inside my painting membership, the Wildlife Painting Academy. Okay, back to the video. So my secret here for getting that beautiful glow is to use a base of silver leaf under your painting. I know, it sounds kind of crazy, but this technique is so much fun. So here I'm starting off by just basically covering the entire iris of the eye with a layer of silver leaf. I've tried it with gold leaf as well, but I personally find that using silver leaf is actually a little bit easier to work with because it just ends up having a brighter finish in the end because you're working with kind of more neutral tone rather than that beautiful gold. But the gold is also beautiful. So once that is all good to go, I start painting. So a quick little spoiler of why this technique is so cool. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm now starting to build up my underpainting. I'm working with oils as per usual. So the trick here, though, is to use transparent layers over that silver leaf. So this is using specific pigments, specific paint, that are transparent rather than opaque. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to create this sort of crystalline layer that the light can bounce through and then bounce off that metallic surface. And it just creates such a cool glow in person. I absolutely love it. It's something that's really, really hard to replicate on video or, impossible to replicate in like a print or something. But with this original, this technique is just so much fun. I did have somebody suggest to try using a layer of metallic paint underneath if you don't have silver or gold leaf, and that is such a great idea as well. So let me know if you ever decide to try this technique and how it turns out for you. But yeah, back to the painting. Basically, I'm just starting to build up my underpainting here, starting with my darkest parts first. When I'm working on my underpainting, my main focus is basically to build up my values. And through these values, you're going to end up building that 3D sort of form of whatever you're painting. What I'm not worrying about at this phase is color and detail. Those sort of things are going to come later. What I'm doing right now is focusing on building up really great values. And then I know all those tasty details, all that gorgeous fur texture, that's going to come later. All those radiant colors, those are also going to come later. With a little asterisk there. With the iris, because I'm going to be painting this over that silver leaf, I will be careful with the way that I'm kind of building this up. And I am going to go in with some color right away once I start working on the actual iris of the eye here. But through glazing, which is like my favorite technique of all time, I know that I'm going to be able to amp up all of that color later so that right now, when I'm working on my underpainting, I can focus on those values because those by far are the most important things in your painting. So these kind of paintings, which is just basically a larger than life, zoomed in crop version of an eye, these are the types of paintings that I can just lose myself in. They are one of my favorite things to paint, and there's just something about zooming in nice and tight on something that is so naturally beautiful. Like, have you ever really looked up close at an eye before? Even your own. Go in the mirror and look at your eye. It is a world of textures and colors, and the way that light bounces around inside the eye is just so captivating. And yeah, as a result, painting eyes is one of my favorite things. I will never get sick of it. And the cool thing is that the animal kingdom is filled with so many cool eyeballs, peepers galore, all of the cool eyes everywheres, and every animal just has something new and cool to offer, which is why I paint a lot of eyes, and I think you should too. Okay, so all the fur underpainting is done, and now I'm going to jump into my first layer on the actual iris here. So this is where my technique deviates a little bit from normal, just because I'm working on that really metallic surface, and I want to make sure that I'm using really thin transparent layers so it doesn't actually obstruct the path to that metallic layer underneath. I want to make sure that I'm using those transparent pigments because if I'm using something opaque, it's going to give a sort of cloudy effect, which is not really what I'm going for here. So what I'm doing here is I basically started off with a sort of glaze layer. It's a really pigmented glaze layer, but I thinned out my transparent paint that I'm using here, which is basically going to be lemon yellow hue, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and a little bit of Prussian blue for that beautiful blue around the pupil there. And I added a bit of painting medium just so that it's going on a little bit thinner because you have to keep in mind that we want this to stay as bright and light as possible because one thing I've noticed through this technique is it's a lot harder to be able to lighten your work without using that opaque titanium white or even zinc white. So I'm trying to be really careful here and keep things as light and bright as possible so that I don't end up with an eyeball that is overly dark because I want to try to avoid using some of those more opaque whites to be able to brighten things. So one of my favorite parts about this particular eye painting is I really wanted to be able to capture some beautiful dramatic lighting. So there's going to be a really bright light source, and whenever you have a really bright light source, it's going to cast strong shadows. And in eyes, this is such a fun thing to be able to emulate and paint because you just end up with these really crazy textures and the way that the light bounces around inside the eye and the way the shadows kind of show off the different contours is just so much fun. So that's why I am using a lot of really strong shadows here. Knowing also too that I'm going to have an opportunity to even strengthen them more once I move into that glazing phase. Because at this point in the painting, I kind of have some of the areas where I want to have those beautiful cast shadows on some of the fur, in the eye itself, but it's not quite as strong as I want it yet. But I know once I jump in with my glaze layer, after I've got all that beautiful fur texture built up, I can go and just amp up everything, just add so many more juicy shadows and just really bring things to life. So at this point in the painting, I'm actually starting to build up my detail. My underpainting is rock solid, love the way it looks. And now I'm going in with a smaller filbert brush here, and I'm kind of using the knife edge of the brush to start to build up some of that fur texture. This is definitely a slow process, and it's one that I find myself kind of getting lost in. It depends. With these eyes, there's something about it that I could just spend all day just sinking into that juicy detail. Whereas sometimes with larger portraits, I don't know, I can get really bored with it, but there's something about these eyes that just mm, capture my attention in the best way possible. But yeah, so my fur here, basically I'm just starting to build up that fur texture, going in with my dark paint first, and then moving in through the sort of gradient of colors. So because I'm painting a white tiger here, my fur is going to be just kind of different shades of gray at this point. So when I'm building up that fur texture, I'm going to be starting with my darker paint first and then moving lighter and lighter as I go. And as I kind of move lighter, I tend to do less, I guess. For me personally, I'm not a huge fan of just hyper detail over every square inch of the painting. I like to keep that intense detail to very specific areas and then let the rest sort of fade off a little bit more. So now one of my new favorite toys is coming out to play. Okay, it's not a new paintbrush, but it's one that I've recently, let's say, rekindled a love for. And that is a script or a liner brush. It's the one that you can see I'm using right here. And basically, it's really long bristles that come to a super fine point, and it is just the best for that really tight fur detail and things like whiskers or like long hairs. And the reason why I think this one is so great is because it just feels so much more useful than working with like a small round brush, for instance, because the long bristles kind of act as a sort of like reservoir for your paint. So I find myself having to refill my brush, like dip it in paint far less. And like, look at these beautiful sharp lines that I'm able to get with it. You do have to make sure that you're thinning out your paint enough. So when I'm working with oils here, when I'm trying to get that like super, super fine, sharp detail, I like to thin out my paint with more paint thinner than I would medium because it's going to give it a more watery consistency and it's going to just allow those brush strokes to flow beautifully. And you're going to get these like crisp lines that are just chef's kiss, beautiful. So now I'm bouncing back to the eye here. It was a little bit of a struggle to try to build up detail without overwhelming it and just making it too dark because I described later how I didn't want to try to brighten the eye by using white because white is a very opaque color and I find that it just ruins the effect of using that silver leaf underneath. So for the most part, I'm just being really careful here, trying my best to not make the iris too dark. And now, whew, this is one of my favorite parts here. I let my painting dry for a few days, so everything was completely dry. And now we get to transform our painting with glazes. So basically, all I'm doing here is I'm going to be going over my entire painting with glazes, which is just a painting medium. My current favorite is Galca Gel by the brand Gamblin, and it's just mixed with small amounts of transparent pigments. So it's basically the same pigments that I'm going to be using in the eye itself. Things like Prussian blue, lemon yellow hue, burnt sienna, and using that to just boost color, but also boost shadows. So here I'm going in with a shadow glaze that I've mixed, and I'm just deepening some of those shadows, bringing it up a bit, adding more drama. And the beautiful thing about this technique of glazing is the fact that it's that transparent layer that's going over top. So you're not actually obstructing anything below. As you can see here, you could still see all of that beautiful detail that I built in here. We're just adding a like crystalline glassy layer on top. And now time for the finishing touches. We were missing the highlight in the eye before, and now I'm kind of going in with a pale white blue and starting to build up that highlight. This step here just completely transforms eyes, and this was the one area where I was okay using white for because the way that it kind of arcs over the eye, you want that to be punchy and really bold and realistic, and just it's going to add so much life to your eye. And then finally, I'm just kind of touching up a few extra details. Wherever I think I want a couple little more sparkles, a couple little more, hairs added here, I'm grabbing that beautiful script brush and adding them wherever I see fit. Pieces like this always remind me of how fun it is to experiment with new materials. I've done a couple of eye paintings now using a metallic base like this, but I remember the first time I tried it, kind of blew my brain a little bit, and I've completely fallen in love since then. Adding that silver or gold leaf underneath just adds a magical luminous quality to the eye. Before you go, don't forget to go sign up for my completely free new training on how to paint a beautiful blue cat eye with oil paint. It's a snapshot of what you can find inside my painting membership, the Wildlife Painting Academy. I think that you are going to love this full-length tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.